do a little video on adding and subtracting polynomials. And so whenever you're looking at this, the key that gives us away that this is either adding or subtracting is you've got the polynomials inside the parentheses, and it's in between the parentheses that tell us what's going on. And so you could have a plus sign here, meaning adding. Could have a subtraction sign, which we'll see here in a second, meaning subtracting. If you don't see either a plus or a minus, and you just got these two parentheses next to each other, then that's actually multiplying, which will be a totally different video. So, like I said, we're just focusing on adding and subtracting on this video. And so the awesome part, once you realize if you're adding or subtracting, with adding, we don't have to change anything, and we can just get right into it. And so when you're adding, we look for the biggest exponent first. So remember that the little numbers right here, these are exponents. And so we're going to look for the biggest exponent in this problem. And so 4 is the biggest exponent. And so the first thing I'm going to take care of is this right here, because it has the exponent 4, and that's the biggest exponent. Now, in order to do something when you're adding and subtracting, it has to have the exact same exponent. And so as we look throughout the problem, we see there's another exponent 4 right here. And so we can actually combine these together. These are called like terms. And so once you realize that you can combine these together, we're looking only at the numbers in front. So these are called the coefficients. So we're only looking at this -2 here, and then the number in front of this, if you don't see a number, is 1. And so this right here ends up being -2 plus 1. And so at this point, I always recommend that we go to calculator. So I would go to regular calculator right there. All right. And then I know I've always said that we always use the minus sign, but in this case, if I use the minus sign, it brings up this A and S. And so what I would recommend is only if it starts with a negative. Now, you won't use this button any other time, but if it starts with a negative, instead of using the minus, actually use the negative. So this would be -2 plus 1. And then we hit enter, and we get -1. So this is really -1x to the 4th. Now, what you'll notice here is that the exponents don't change. So this 4 stays a 4 down here, okay? So once you realize that they both have a 4, we simply are going to work with the numbers in front of the letters. We don't actually do anything with the letters themselves. So we got -1x to the 4th. You can see on my multiple choice, all these have -1x to the 4th. So that really didn't help me too much. All right, now, when I finish using something, I like to mark it off. It just kind of cleans things up a little bit. And so now I'm looking at this. Well, the next biggest exponent is this squared right here. And so on this squared right here, I look, well, nothing else has a 2. Okay, so this doesn't have an exponent 2. It technically has an exponent of 1. And so at this point, this has to be in my answer. I can't combine it with anything. So this has to be in my answer. So when we look at our answers, the only one that has 5x squared is going to be D right there. And D would be your answer. And of course, you see this also can't combine with anything. So that would be right there. And so I'm kind of using multiple choice right here because this is what I would do on a test. You could write this out. So if it wasn't multiple choice, as 5x squared and then plus 2x, and it would be that right there. All right, so let's take a look at another one. All right, so like I said, in between the parentheses, we see a minus. Now, with a minus, I know this is going to sound weird, but we don't use the minus. And so whenever we see a minus, we're going to turn this into a plus sign. And so we don't minus. We're only going to plus. So we change this to a plus sign. Well, if you change this to a plus sign, you have to change everything after, never before. So always after. So after every number, we have to change the sign. If it's negative, it will change to a positive. If it's positive, it will change to a negative. So this is positive 2, so I'm going to change it to a negative 2. This is a plus 4, so I'm going to change it to a minus or a negative 4. All right, so we changed everything. Well, once we do that, now the same rules apply with addition. I need to look for the biggest exponent. So this is my biggest exponent right here, this 4. And so I'm going to work with this 5x to the 4th. So then I look at my problem, and I see I have another 4. Now, I can't combine these, even though they're both x's, because they're different exponents. But this has a 4, so I can combine these two right here. And so once you find two of them that have the same exponent, now it's just the number in front. 5, and then this was a negative 2, so 5 minus 2. 5 minus 2 would be 3, so this becomes 3x to the 4th. Once again, the exponent doesn't change. Only the numbers in front will change. So this doesn't have 3x to the 4th, and this doesn't have 3x to the 4th, so it's either going to be A or D. All right, so now, like I said, I like to mark these off. So we're going to mark these off right here. And then what's left? Okay, well, my next biggest exponent is x to the 3rd, and this is x to the 3rd. So we can combine these two. So there's an understood 1 here when we don't see a number. So this is negative 1, and then minus, because that changed, minus 4. So negative 1 minus 4. So we're going to go to calculator. And because it starts off with a negative, it's okay to use this right here. It's the only time. So negative 1, and then minus 4. Hit enter, and we get negative 5. So the numbers can be done in the calculator. You cannot put the whole thing in the calculator, but just the numbers in front of the letters can be done in the calculator. And so this becomes negative 5x to the 3rd, and the only one that has the negative 5 would be A. All right, we're going to do one more. All right, so once again, this looks really big. So let's take a look at this. It's got a minus sign. We don't minus, so we have to change this to a plus. All right, so if I change that to a plus, the rule is everything after has to change. So if it was negative, it would change to a positive. Positive changes to a negative. So this is positive 5, it changes to a negative 5. This is a positive 6 plus 6, so it changes to a minus or a negative 6. Plus 14 changes to a minus or a negative 14. All right, once you change all of that, now it's the same thing we've been doing. Now, the issue that a lot of kids have is they want to take the first thing here and the first thing here and combine them, but that's not what we do. We look for the biggest exponent. The biggest exponent was this 4 right here. And so they're not always in the same place. And so this is located at the end of this parentheses, but this also has the exponent 4 is located at the beginning, and that's okay. It doesn't matter where it's located. They simply have to have the same exponent. So now all we deal with is the number in front. So it's negative 14 minus 5. So negative 14, so negative 14 minus 5. And that's negative 19. So this right here becomes negative 19 A to the 4th. Sorry, that's sloppy there. And so you can look at your answers here, and it cannot be A or B. So we've done this. Now, I will tell you, I'm a pretty good test taker. And as a test taker, I keep my eyes on my answers. And so I look, and the next thing we have to work out is the A's. But I noticed they're both the same. So it's kind of pointless to work out the A's. Now, you can do it. I'm going to do it real quick. So we have negative 14A and negative 5A. So negative 5A minus 14A would be negative 19A. So you can work it out, but I personally would have actually skipped this part. I already know it's negative 19A because that's the only thing we have here. And I would have focused in on the ones that didn't have letters. And so I'm going to go ahead and mark this off for a second. All right, so what doesn't have letters? The negative 5 and the negative 6. So negative 5 minus 6, so negative 5 minus 6 would be negative 11. Move that out of the way a little bit. Negative 11. And so you can see right here, the one that has negative 11 would be C. So at first, these kind of look kind of complicated, but once you kind of dive into this, you can tell that it's really not all that bad at all. So hopefully this little video helped.